Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CXNext Live. I'm Chris Savio from the Bolt 360 product marketing team, and excited to have you all here today. Sorry for a little delay start. We ran into some fun technical issues, as technology never wants to agree when you need it, but we worked through that, and we've got what I think is going to be really fun and interesting topic that we're tackling today. Little housekeeping for those of you that are first time joining us. CXNext Live is really our take on looking at different trends and insights in the CXNext, the customer experience space, talking about different topics from technology to approaches to change, and everything that kind of runs the gamut. Sometimes we'll bring up different processes ourselves, and a lot of times, like today, we have some great guests that we bring in to really give some different perspective on it. Sometimes ones that are living and working in call centers, others some great thought leaders. And on that note, I want to introduce our guest, who's a fantastic thought leader in the space, Gary Magenta from Root. Welcome, Gary, to CXNext Live.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So we did have that fun technical issues, but now we're live and good to go. So that's fun. So before we kind of get into the topics and chat about it, I want to give you a second to give your esteemed background to everyone and everything you've been working on in general relative to CX, and then we can jump into the topic for today.
Sure. Well, I like to say I was born on the floor of a retail store, so I've been in CX longer than it's been called CX. Back in the day when we called it customer service instead of customer experience. I grew up in the retail business. I immediately, as a young teenager, started working in hospitality, in the restaurant business specifically, and was an owner-operator in the hospitality business for years before I became a customer experience consultant. But over the last 30 years, I have spent my time with some of the world's largest organizations delivering customer experience as a key differentiator. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I have learned a lot from them on what works and what doesn't work, and have a book out called 720 Haircuts that's specifically on delivering customer loyalty that lasts a lifetime, and a new book coming out called Resist and Cease to Exist, which is based on research and work with companies who have effectively disrupted their customers' experience and pulled into the fast in their industries, and those who have literally gone extinct by not paying attention to the customers.
Right. That's a fantastic background, and I do love kind of, you have kind of both perspectives, and in the consulting shop, you've seen so many different types of industries, verticals, problems. So I think we'll have a great conversation today, and you'll bring a really unique perspective that we have yet to have had on CXNext Live. So yeah, into the topic for today. So one of the things that we wanted to tackle with you, Gary, so actually got introduced to Gary a few months back in an event where he gave a really great keynote speech, and kind of, was thinking about it recently, and I think that, confining it to just that keynote was not enough, and wanted to spread this information with other people. So that's why we were bringing him on. And the topic really was, what do you do when you're tackling change as it's relative to CX, right? And there's lots of potential hurdles and pitfalls and issues along the way. And I think a lot of time people are scared of running into those risks and issues when they're trying to adjust, their customer experience approach, and really understand that it is kind of a full journey that they have to tackle. So I think the first thing I'd love to start off kind of talking about, Gary, is like, what do you see as one or two or maybe even three of the biggest issues that companies run into when they're trying to, change their CX approach or change anything within their, customer experience model?
Well, I think, first we even take a step back from that. And what I find is that many companies are resistant to change because they think they're a super special snowflake, and their product and service is so unique that they don't have to really focus on it. Oh, people are always going to want this product or service delivered this way. And it's sort of been the death knell for many organizations. So that sort of denial or organizational arrogance that we're unique and special. There is no unique or special product or service in today's world that cannot and will not, and is not knocked off overnight. It just happens. I think what's unique, what's our thumbprint, is our customer experience. That's the way to differentiate ourselves. It's the DNA.
Yeah.
So
and
organizations.
an interesting point on that, Gary. I think, not to interrupt you, but those companies that think, well, they have a strong and solid product and they're not evolving from the experience side, I think a lot of the reason that people get knocked off is because you have those upstarts and maybe more flexible and fast to come into the space. And then you also have these comparisons to other adjacent spaces or providers, right? That kind of Uber effect and things like that, that they have to start following those trends, or, you know, they'll die a quick death.
For sure, they die a quick death. And what's interesting is that even once there's a recognition that we need to focus on customer experience, the other issue or roadblock that I see is leadership team says, well, let's go hire a customer experience person. And, you know, everyone has a leader of customer experience now, but they get sort of relegated over into a corner. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got a customer experience person. Go do that customer experience thing and let us know how it's happening. It doesn't work that way. Right. Customer experience is got to be a part of our strategy and our culture. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I think some of our leaders are missing today. Customer experience is not a thing that you hire somebody to go do. Right. Customer experience is who we are strategically and culturally. And the other piece of that is that customer experience is oftentimes thought of as a destination. Well, we're going to install this new technology. That's not it either. Customer experience is constantly evolving. It is this journey. We need to have a mindset in customer experience that we have to be agile, the most overused word on the planet. We have to be agile enough to change at the speed of the marketplace, or even better, change one step ahead of the marketplace.
Yeah, I think so. Interesting point that you said there. I mean, I think having kind of this, you know, there are these amazing customer experience professionals, but I like your point that it needs to, the idea of customer experience needs to permeate the whole organization, right? And then this customer experience head of CX or whatever can be that nebulous that's continuing to fork out to engage with these other business units, but it can't just be a siloed engagement. It has to, from start to finish, from sales to support, you know, and everything in between, it really has to be ingrained almost into the business DNA if it's something that you want to push forward. 100%.
And, you know, what's interesting about that is years ago, we used to hear HR leaders saying, we need a seat at the table. We need a seat at the table. Well, HR leaders have had a seat at the table now for a decade or so. And now it's CX leaders. We need a seat at the table. We need a seat at the table. And that seat at that leadership table needs to be in crafting what is our customer experience strategy? How does that match with our technology, our product, and our operations to all come together? And how do we create a culture of customer first in our business? I think that culture piece is where our CX team aligns with HR to really think about how do we look at the business from the customer's viewpoint in versus our viewpoint out. You know, sort of the most famous couple of stories in our lifetime is, you know, Blockbuster said, we don't want to buy Netflix because what are we going to do with the 6,000 stores? Well, what did you do with the 6,000 stores? And Kodak says, we don't want to use the digital camera, which they invented, because that will make film obsolete. So how's film doing for you today? You know, we've got to be able to disrupt ourselves around the customer's wants and needs. And when you think about digital camera, or you think about downloading or streaming Netflix, people say, well, it's a technology disruption. And I disagree with that. Technology is just the means. It's a customer experience disruption. The customer said, I don't want to get off my couch and come to your store. I don't even want to get up and go to my refrigerator. Just get the stuff downloaded to my house, right? The customer said, I want control over my picture. I don't want to have to go to the little creepy guy in the photomat booth to get red eye taken out of my picture. I want to do it myself.
Right.
That's what the customer said.
I mean, that's a really great example, right? That I think a lot of people that you speak to, and sometimes I fall into this trap as well, is you think customer experience and you really just think it's kind of this frontline engagement level, right? Customer engagement.
It's not smiling.
Associated with just customer experience, but it's every way that your users, your customers are going to engage with your product and experience it, right? So whether that's with a human, whether that's with technology or something else, a storefront that they're going into, right? Where they might talk to anyone, but it's the experience that they get through walking through the store.
Yes.
That all kind of, I think, needs to tie together, and you need to understand, the fluidity of it and the harmony between the points.
Well, that's why we call it experience now, right? You know, customer service, I see as the transactional touch points along the customer's journey. So did somebody help me in aisle 7? Was there a bagger to help me at checkout? Those are all service touch points. But when you think about experience, it's like looking in the rearview mirror of your car and saying, in totality, would I go back? Would I recommend this? Experience is a culmination of all of the touch points. Right. And it is an emotional connection. Experience is the emotional connection we make with our customers, because without that emotional connection, you don't have loyalty. Without loyalty, you don't have a business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that there are a lot of brands that are doing a great job pushing the envelope on experience and listening to their customers, right? Having that outside-in approach and doing a great job. And for good or for bad, those other brands, as we were saying, if they're not making this in the forefront, they're going to get left behind. They're not going to be, they'll lose that loyalty in a heartbeat, which is customers are fickle. As a customer, I know that as well. One bad experience can lead to a disloyal customer. So you sometimes have to value every single touch point the same.
So I agree with you that customers are fickle, but one of my predictions for 2020 is a polyamorous customer is emerging. And what I mean by that is we are usually loyal to brands, right? We get loyal, we stick in, and it gets difficult to push us off that brand. I think 2020 is the year of customer immediate gratification, and that's B2B, B2C, B2B2C. The immediate gratification generation is that while they're loyal to a brand, if you put it in front of me and you can get it to me immediately, I will be polyamorous in my loyalty, and I'll shift between brands based on my wants and needs in this moment. And part of that is, just think about the ability to be on social media, see that cool pair of sunglasses on your favorite celebrity, and one step click on those glasses and get them delivered the same day or next day.
Right.
Well, I don't necessarily care if they're coming from Nordstrom's or Neiman Marcus. I want it, Daddy, and I want it now.
The people experience is what they're looking for, not necessarily the provider or the solution.
100%. You want to know why? Because those glasses are the same at Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom.
Right.
So I'm becoming, because I'm not in store maybe, and there's some immediacy there, I'm willing to switch from one brand to the other to get what I want when I want it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, that if it is uber commoditized to that extent, that then it all comes down to the experience side of the equation.
Yes, for sure.
So I think, we can't obviously understate the importance of defining that CX as this kind of broad, pervasive, thing that needs to hit on everything. And I think those are great examples. So now I'm a company that, wants to dive into this. I want to make change along the way to improve my customer experience, whether it's, from a support side, a sales side, a product side, whatever it is, right? I want to take these initiatives. You've made some interesting points in the presentation I heard previously. If we can kind of touch on those, so why do most organizations, what is the number one reason that a lot of times organizations fail when they try and say, okay, we have this CX initiative, we're going to push forward this new XYZ, and then it doesn't actually develop or it lands with a thud, at that customer's feet?
So let's answer it two ways. Thanks for the question. Let's answer it two ways. One is, I just want to offer a bit of an overview. Statistically, 70% of all customer experience strategies fail. All strategies overall fail due to people issues. Mm-hmm. The technology works. We've got great technology out there. Strategies, organizations are paying tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in research and building strategies, and the strategies are good. It's the alignment, implementation / execution and sustainment of those strategies that are broken. And and people are responsible for the alignment, execution, and sustainment of the strategy. So
Right.
I've got a visual, Chris, that I think you have there.
Canyon
The
setup.
Canyon. Can you pull it up? Because I think our viewers would be able to see this in a visual way and understand the disconnects that we see in the market.
Start chatting about that.
There are while that's coming up, here we go. There are three major groups involved in deploying a customer experience strategy. In the top left, you see that we've got leaders, and those leaders are working with the best of intentions on their piece of the puzzle, but they're not always putting those pieces together. So operations, technology, human beings, strategy, all have to come together for customer experience to work.
Yep.
Those leaders oftentimes need help putting those puzzle pieces together. And then we go down to the managers, and the managers are literally the linchpin, the conduit between our customer experience strategy being crafted at the leadership level and the frontline doers that are responsible for bringing it to life. So if you look at leaders, managers, and doers in this visual, there are gaps or canyons between the three. From, hey, we've got the strategy, it's done, go execute it, says the leader, to managers that say, wait a minute, I'm not sure how to engage my team in this strategy, to the front line that's saying, oh, well, I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to engage in this. Right. And the entire time, we've got a tornado running around us, circling around us, of those changes that keep happening. By the time we implement change A, it's time for change B.
Yeah, by the time it gets down that, and I love that visual from that, top of the mountain or so, right, down to the actual front lines through the management level, et cetera, the next one is already on its way, right? So you don't even have time to digest, if you're one of these, the doers, what just happened, why. I think it's a big piece, why we're doing this. And then all of a sudden, there's something else that we just changed again. And I completely agree that if you are one of those doers, you're just getting this influx. You just get frustrated and give up eventually.
Yeah, and speed is your number one determinant of success right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, a B strategy, a B-level strategy in the world of A, B, C, D, F, a B-level strategy executed well beats an A-level strategy that is 15 months too late. Mm-hmm. So spend less time on the strategy and more time on the execution of the strategy.
Yeah, and I think, a piece of that execution, that's an interesting point, is that the market is moving so fast, and the needs of your customers are moving so fast. As soon as you kind of get that one idea, yeah, you can sit and overthink it, I guess. But if you're confident, you have agreement on it. Really, it's working on how it's going to manifest itself, and funnel through those different levels, and being kind of aware of it is where you're probably going to see the most success. So it can be a decent strategy, and if executed well, it can knock it through the roof, as opposed to a fantastic strategy that is executed poorly, and then you're pretty much done.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting is, so in these three tiers that you have, with the leadership, the kind of manager level there, and the doers, what would you say are kind of the responsibilities of on those different levels? As it comes to actually delivering on these new changes?
Great question. Thank you. You're teeing up another piece of collateral that I brought with me today. I appreciate that. Let's look at those responsibilities, as you said. So we have to think about change more systemically and as a process. And so let's just look at these three major buckets. Top left, you're looking at defining reality. We don't need to go through the 8 steps, but we should look at the 3 buckets. Our leaders are responsible for defining the reality. That means, what is our current state of our customer experience? What is the desired future state of customer experience based on what the customer is telling us? That's leaders' job. Current state, future state, and align on the priorities that we're going to take to change the customer experience, and enroll those next level leaders who are responsible for bringing it to life. But ultimately, our leaders are responsible for current state, future state, and our strategic priorities. Where the rubber really meets the road is when you have that established by leaders, we need to create an organizational movement. And what that means is an organizational movement means we have to capture the hearts and minds of our people. It's not enough to just have an intellectual understanding of change. We have to have an emotional connection to it. And so organizational movements mean connecting people emotionally to our customer experience change and creating intellectual understanding. And then the final stage is you got to sustain this stuff. There are so many companies, countless companies in every industry who just roll a customer experience out and expect like magic it's going to stick. It's crazy who they think. And that's not the case. You roll it out, you turn around, and people go back to their old actions and behaviors.
Right. So let's jump back up to the top of that part, right? So the defining the future, establishing where we currently are and where we're moving to. The level of detail, I could see a question from some leaders that are there, like, what do you think the level of detail that needs to kind of funnel down through the managers to the doers? How detailed does it have to be? Is it really just, the high level whys? Is it, impacts? What would your suggestion kind of be for defining that future?
So I think all too many organizations forget the why. They go immediately to training. So better customer experience. Let's teach our people to smile. Give them a training module on smiling. Stop. Or, we've got to be a cooler company to work out to attract the right talent. Get the donuts and the ping pong table.
Right.
It's not about any of those things.
But those are good.
Listen, nobody loves donuts more than me, but I can buy my own donuts. I don't actually need that from the company. What we need is the why customer experience is important, is our key to survival. It is literally our biggest differentiator. So why customer experience is important, it's got to be front and center. What is our customer experience? And how are we changing both technologically and human-based skills to deliver that experience? So why customer experience as key? Why are we paying attention to it? What is our customer experience that will differentiate us? And then how are we delivering it through technology, people, and operations? Most importantly, people.
Yeah. You know what I like about that? I mean, I think you made a point there of like telling someone to smile or telling someone to, spend more time with certain types of customers, or telling, a product team to deliver on X, Y, or Z is all well and good. But maybe, when you're delivering the why of why it's important, what we want to achieve from it, sometimes those doers are pretty smart in their own regards, and they can realize, well, maybe a smile isn't always the right way to get to this, this what or this why. Maybe I can deliver on that by doing something else. So you're really kind of arming them with that information to then empower them to make the decision of what's the right way to deliver for that specific experience for that specific customer.
Yeah, we are brothers from another mother on that. That is, I couldn't have said it better, but I do want to reiterate it in a little bit of a different way. If you help people understand the marketplace and why change and what we're doing to differentiate themselves, they'll come to their own conclusion on what they need to do differently. Not that they don't need training. We all need training, but it's less. I tell people spend less on the tactical training and more on the inclusion of your frontline as a business partner. Help them understand the marketplace. They'll figure it out. Oh my goodness. If our competitors are doing X, I need to do Y. If our customers need X, I need to do Y. You're hiring smart people. And it's really, it is insulting, I think, in some instances that we don't treat our frontline smarter than we should. From all of the data I see, our frontline has the same IQ as our leaders. So they do. It's just a fact.
Right. They're just less informed when it comes to some of the strategy stuff or the business things.
100%. So if our leaders have this bucket of information and they were able to come to specific conclusions, why wouldn't we give that same information to our front line with the expectation they'd come to the same conclusions? Same IQ, same industry. They're just in different paths or different places in their journey. That's all.
Right. And I mean, I would almost even say is they're better equipped to make some of those decisions because they're the ones that are interacting with those customers. Your senior leaders are sometimes so far removed from the customer that they might have a good thought or suggestion, but they're not in the trenches, right?
Hell yes. Yes, they are better equipped because they literally have their fingers on the pulse of the customer. Sometimes we get to leadership roles and we're so far removed from our customer, we don't hear their voices anymore. We're at the front line. They have their fingers on the pulse of the customer because they're hearing from them every day. I don't care if it's in chat or if it's live in a B2B or B2C environment, they're in touch with them.
Yeah.
Direct.
So when you're kind of consulting for companies or meeting with them, so you have your kind of that Canyon visual that we had, and to kind of build on that, would you almost say, right, you're trying to build almost bridges between those and have people be fluid through them, right? Have some of your doers, involved in some of the strategy when it gets to a certain point. Have some of those managers sitting with the doers. Have some of the senior leaderships move down to understand the pains of running these teams and almost be able to kind of cross these bridges back and forth.
Yeah, so I like to say I'm in the business of building bridges, but don't have to get my hands that dirty. So for sure, we've got to build the bridges between the marketplace and leaders. That requires insights. Leaders to managers, managers to the front line back to the marketplace. And here's what's interesting. So you said, well, do you need their voices? Do you need sort of that information at the table? Here's what we have found. Here's what's so interesting to me. There are people in your organization today that are already demonstrating the culture, which is, your actions and behaviors, the actions and behaviors that you would like everybody to deliver in order to be a leader in customer experience. There are that 5% or 3% of people who are already doing it. I like to study. Get the insights from that. You're able to put it in already. They're likely doing some sort of a workaround. You want to know what they're doing so you can put that information over there. It's not like, let's go everybody wants to go benchmark Starbucks. Okay, but, you sell gas, so it's a little different. We don't need to go benchmark Starbucks necessarily, although they're a fantastic organization.
Right.
Why don't you benchmark your best people first? Because they're making it happen in your organization already. And I've never seen an organization that doesn't have that top 3 to 5% who are already demonstrating at the pace of the marketplace. It's the other 95% that we need to bring forward.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's an interesting kind of take on it. I think that, I think that too often you're kind of dipping outside to find things where there's these troves of information in your own company, and if you're able to just engage more and learn more, I think it benefits up and down.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting we put blinders on and we don't look at what other people are doing. I'm not suggesting that at all.
Yeah.
What I am suggesting is that while you're on this quest to learn what's best, spend some really good quality time finding out best practices, success routines from your own people, because there is a group that has them. And again, at the risk of being repetitive, they're making those success routines work within the constraints of your business today.
Right. Yeah, I think that this narrative approach is great, because I do believe, right, once you have, not only are we empowering people or enabling them, but I think the other piece of it is by kind of understanding why we're doing what we're doing as an organization, you just get greater camaraderie across, greater buy-in in general, just better employees, which is going to result in better experiences for your customers regardless. For
sure. Well, you can't have a great customer experience without having a great employee experience. And in order to have a great employee experience, we obviously have to know how to set them up for success. And there are people in the business who already know that. Yeah. Who are already living it.
So this has been great. So, I mean, just to kind of recap what we talked about, and if there's any parting thoughts you have, I'd love to know, Gary. But, really we said the idea of CX, this customer experience, it's not just support, it's not just engagement, it's not just a single point in time. It has to straddle every part of your organization, right? Because your customers can experience your brand in so many ways, whether it is through advertising, whether it's through a support experience, whether it's going into a store or going to your website or using your product, right? And to drive forward, knowing that it's not a single unit, it has to be, a cross-functional group, and learning from what your customers want, listening to them, having that outside-in approach. And then once you have that, vision or perception, buy-in with the organization, it's then being able to share that vision and thoughts, and whether it's in general or maybe specific initiatives you're rolling out, from the top to the bottom, with defining that future, enabling those teams, and to kind of sustain that ongoing change by those kind of doers, the front lines.
So I guess my recap is always this: customer experience is your key differentiator. If you don't have a seat at the table as a CX leader, and you're not going to get one, send your resume out. And your main job, and I'm very serious about that, if CX isn't seen as strategic in your business and that's your career, move on, and move on quickly, because that business won't be there much longer. Mm-hmm. If you are in CX and you are an influencer, you need to tie customer experience to your strategy and your culture. Those are the keys. If you do that, obviously the next piece there is to ensure that you're connecting the heart and the mind to that customer experience, because really creating loyalty with your customer, B2B or B2C, is about emotional connection. And if your people aren't emotionally connected to your CX strategy, it's difficult for them to create that emotional connection with their people.
Yeah, I love it. That's obviously a far better summary than myself. I think you've done this before.
Right.
Well, thank you again, Gary, for joining us. I hope for those that have been watching, this has been very informative and instructional. Gary's got those books. Again, if you want to mention those again, Gary, feel free.
You can go to Amazon and see 2 of my books. 2 of them will be out. 2 more will be out this spring. But the one that's out right now that's important for this audience would be 720 haircuts, creating customer loyalty that lasts throughout your customer's experience.
I love that title, 720 haircuts. Well, we'll have to take offline and find out where that title came from. But
it's a really interesting story that we'll save for next time. The story is great on that one, I think.
All right, great. Well, thanks again, Gary, and thank you everyone for watching again. Wednesdays at 11-ish, provided we don't have technical issues. Come back and join us as we bring other guests on, other practitioners, and talk about trends or insights. And if you have any topics that you want myself or my colleague Ryan Lester to cover when we're on this, comment on it, send us a note, and we'll be sure to add that to the queue. So thanks again, and thank you again, Gary, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Take care, everybody. Bye.